Hey guys, welcome to the Scholar Online YouTube channel, the channel that is all about learning. I know that I've been away for quite some time. I truly apologize. It has been really busy. You know, we've been launching a new product called a mobile GPT. Let me just tell you about it very quickly. But we built a ChatGPT interface that you can access via your mobile device on WhatsApp. So if you guys want to check it out, feel free to go have a look at it. But really, this has kept me so busy for the last couple of weeks that I haven't been able to release a video in quite some time. But today, I'm back with another interesting video that I hope you're going to learn a lot from, okay? So we're going to continue with our ChatGPT stuff, and I'm going to show you today something that a client asked me this week to help them with, and so I started researching on it. But this is how you can custom build your ChatGPT model to be able to read information that you give it. All right, so currently if you go to the ChatGPT website and you follow this video that I've just that I'm watching right now on my channel, you can ask ChatGPT anything, but it will give you information that has been trained on up to around 2021, I think. So this is information that is already in the ChatGPT engine, right? So let's say you have your own company documents or you have your own website documentation that you want to build a chatbot for people to ask questions to, right? So this is actually the case that I'm going to build here today. I'm going to show you how to build your own model that is going to be answering questions based on website information that you feed to it. So we're going to work on an existing documentation website. In fact, the website we're going to work on is my other website that I'm running, which is called Skoko. So I'm going to feed this information into ChatGPT from this website, and I'm going to then ask it questions based on the information of this website, and it should be able to answer me because it will be able to read it in real time. Okay, so this is not a real-time browser. This is a specific document that I fed into the ChatGPT model. Now, before we continue, let's get through the formalities. As usual, please remember to like this video. Liking my videos really helps the channel to do better. And remember to leave a comment, leave a note. Of course, be nice. Don't leave your I don't know, comments that are not so nice, but feel free to ask questions. If there's something you don't understand, feel free to leave a recommendation. If you think I could be doing things better, I'm always open as long as you are nice. All right, now on our if you open that underneath the video you're watching, of course, after you've liked and subscribed to my channel, there is that show more button under the description. Okay, so have a look at that because I'm going to leave some useful stuff in there. I'm going to try and put timestamps. It depends on how long this video is going to be. If it's really long, I'll add timestamps, and you can use the timestamps to navigate through different parts of the video. And I've got my contact information, my email address, and all sorts of things that you can get in touch with me on, of course. But don't write me an email about an error that you should be able to easily Google or search for information of Stack Overflow, right? With that, I'm going to close this video and we're going to get straight to it, okay? What we're using today is going to be a combination of a couple of things, and I'm going to try and give you some very high level background about what exactly we're doing. Now, if you go to OpenAI, let me actually just say platform.openai.com, and we're not going into the documentations. We just want to go directly into the OpenAI platform. What you will see is there is a lot of, if you go to the documentation, there is a lot of tools already that are available on OpenAI. So we have already covered the majority of these APIs in our own YouTube channel, including chat completion, image generation, so forth and so forth. But what we haven't done before is embeddings. Like, this is where you actually embed information or documents into the ChatGPT interface or engine, and ask it to give you very specific answers based on the documentation that you've given it, right? You can try and go through the documentation here, but what I'm going to cover in this video is not going to be based off the OpenAI documentation. I'm going to actually cover methods to do this based on third-party libraries that actually really simplify this process of embedding data, that you don't have to go through the step-by-step. If you try and read this documentation, for example, it's actually quite complex with a lot of what you have to do and creating all sorts of embeddings and the indexes and so forth. That's going to, it's going to you can go through this, but it's going to take you a lot of time, and people have already done this and they've created libraries that we're going to use. So the library that we're going to use today specifically is this one, and I'm going to link it in the description below. And you've probably heard about this if you've searched through how to train OpenAI on your own specific documentation, right? It's called it's a Llama Hub, all right, and it's a Python library, so it's specifically built in Python. So if you're developing on anything else, well, sorry, thanks to all the guys that are working with Python, and there's a Python channel, and we do a lot of our stuff on Python. So I'm so very happy that a lot of the OpenAI tools that have come out, even OpenAI itself, is largely based on Python. So if you're a Python developer, you're gonna just immediately fall into this because the libraries and everything have already been pre-developed for Python. Okay, so this is Llama Hub. So what is this Llama? This Llama Hub is actually there's two different sort of, I don't know how to describe this. I want to break this down to try and define it for you in a way that you'll understand if you're going through this for the first time. There are two different steps that we follow to be able to do these training of the ChatGPT model on your own specific documentation. The first one is actually creating the document itself and creating the index. No. The first thing is actually to ingest the data into a readable format that the model can use. All right, so this is where the Llama Hub comes in. What this Llama Hub does actually is it takes different data sources, right? So whether it's an Airtable table, a Sanam, whether it's a file, you can actually even input like a file directory. You can put in a Word document, you can put in a PDF document. There's different versions of file types that it will take and break down into an index, right? And so it will break it down into a format that's easily readable by the AI model, right? And then the next part of the process is now to actually read that AI model and give it a prompt that it will be able to answer based on the information that's available inside of your index. So there are two main steps in what we're doing, and we're going to be using two different libraries to do this. So the Llama Hub library specifically, what it really does is just it takes information from multiple different formats, and you can see they've been adding multiple loaders. So loaders are the tools that you use to actually load data from your specific format into a loadable version that is then converted into an index, and then you read the information of the index. You understand? So it sort of standardizes information into like a text format that you can then be able to read using anything else going forward, right? So there are many types of loaders over here, and maybe in future we'll try and cover many different versions of this, but the one that I've shown you, the one that I'm going to show you today, which is the simplest one to use in my mind, I think, is the web scraping loader. All right, so if you just scroll down here, and if you've done web scraping, and even in our channel we've got videos where we've worked with Beautiful Soup to scrap information off a website. Basically this loader does the exact same thing. It works off the Beautiful Soup Python library to scrap information off a website and sort of structure it in a nice sort of like text format that you can then input into the loader and create an index out of it that you then use to train or to sort of like use your language model later to answer a specific question based on the information in the index. All right, so just keep up with me now, but you'll understand later as we go on. So whatever I'm going to show you with the website reading, you can use Stack Overflow, you can use Slack, you can use Documents, Notion, you can use anything, but I'm going to work with this one. Okay, so I'm going to open this in a different window, and I think I've already opened it over here. So this is the file loader. We're not going to cover the file loader today, but the file loader works exactly the same way. Once you figure out how the Beautiful Soup loader works, you can use the exact same principle to use any other loader. And what I love about this loader documentation is that they give you the sample code of exactly how to use a loader. So if you wanted to use the file loader, for example, which is this one over there, if you open this in a new tab, you can see it shows you exactly how to use the LLMA index, the Llama index, to use that specific loader, and where you would put the directory of the files, and then how you would get the documents out of that, and then later on you're gonna create an index out of this document. So there's like 2 or 3 lines of data that of code that you have to do here to, first of all, create the reader, to load the data of the reader, and then you have to create an index of the document that you create over here. And I'll take you through the steps here, but we'll be using the beautiful soup loader instead. Okay, so what you need to do to get started, just to prepare your environment going forward, this is sort of an intermediary tutorial, assuming you do know a little bit about Python, you've worked with Python before, you've watched some of my videos in the past, you have already a working environment that you can work from. So I'm not going to cover those basics. I'm going to go straight into my development environment where I'm working from. So if you go over here, we're going to create a directory that we're going to work from. All right, so actually I see I already have a virtual environment activated, so I'm going to clear that so that there's nothing over here. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to create a working directory. A working directory is just where I'm going to be doing all my work from. So for that, I'm going to say, I'm going to make a directory, mkdir, and I'm going to call this directory, let's call it embed. All right, I'm going to call it embed, and then I'm going to immediately move into that directly by using cd into embed. All right, so now I'm in an embed directory. You can see this directory, if I list the directory, it's completely empty. There's nothing else in here. And by the way, I've had guys asking me around, why don't you use the online versions, why don't you use Anaconda, why don't you use other different ways of working with Python? And this is just my working style. All right, and whatever I'm teaching you, you should be able to customize it into any other Python format if you understand the principle behind what I'm really doing. Okay, I can only use one way of programming, and I cannot do everything in all the different formats that people want it in. But the reason why I choose my virtual servers and the way I work, the way that I work in this channel, is so that you can build tools that you can actually deploy and build websites that you can put out there. So that's why I use this type of programming on virtual servers, on virtual environments and things like that, because I want you to be able to build something that you can immediately deploy. And you've seen on my channel that I've taken projects from zero to complete deployment state where you can actually build a whole working application. That is why I use my style of programming. But you can, of course, customize it to anything that works for you. So I'm going to clear this where I am, and I'm going to just show you again that this is empty. So the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to create a virtual environment working with Python. You always want to install your libraries inside of an enclosed virtual environment that you can work with, so that you know exactly what version of libraries you're working with at every time. So to do that, I'm going to say virtual env, and I'm gonna just call it, to simplify things for me, I'm just gonna copy and paste the exact same folder, and I'm gonna say embed env, so that I know that this is an actual environment as opposed to a normal folder. And once you've done that, if you clear and you ls again, you will see now you have this folder called embed env, but this is actually a virtual environment, but it is again just a Python folder. Just a file directory. So we're going to activate this environment. So to do that, you're gonna do source, and you're gonna paste the name of the environment, and you're gonna say bin activate. And our environment is active, and you'll see that by having that environment with the brackets on top of the thing. And then we're going to clear this, and then we're going to start working from here. Okay, so the first thing before we do anything else is we always need an OpenAI key to do anything on OpenAI. So to do that, I'm going to start with that so that I can close up my, where was I? I think I had the platform open and platform.openai.com. And once you get to your OpenAI, you just go into your your name, where your name is, and you click on view API keys, and then you'll see you've got a couple of API keys that I've got. There's an API key that I just created there. I've never used it. That's the one I'm going to use today. All right. So the way to do that is just click this create secret key at the bottom there, and then it will give you a key that you can copy. So copy that key. All right. And then once you've copied that key, we're gonna create a file. All right, I'm going to create a new file, and in that file I'm going to call it config.py. all right, and inside of that file called config.py, it will be an empty file. Just say key, all right, is equals to, and then put in whatever, paste your API key here. All right, so whatever it is you've copied over here, go and paste it inside of this file, and just call it a variable called key. And then once you've done that, I'm going to save everything, and then I'm just going to close this file that is called config.py. all right, so just close it once you're done. So that's the first thing, and you can do that. By the way, this embed folder is going to be the exact same embed folder over here. So I've written the files over there, but what you can do is you can also create them directly here. But currently, if you see here, I haven't created the files here yet, but I'm going to actually just copy and paste them over there. So what I need to do is then paste these files inside of my working directory. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to install our libraries. Okay, so there's three main libraries we need. We need OpenAI library, of course, for obvious reasons, because everything we're doing over here is on OpenAI. And before you run pip install, just make sure that you have your virtual environment open. So I'm going to just install all of that, and it takes a while to do that. And while it's busy installing, we're going to go and copy the next one, which is pip install LLMA index. So there's the Llama index is the one that we're using to actually load our documents into an index format that the OpenAI is going to be able to read. All right, so let's paste that for now. All right, so it's going to take a while to and then the next thing is the LangChain. all right, so LangChain is a completely different library, right? And initially when I was going through this tutorial, I actually also wanted to cover LangChain, but maybe we'll do this in future, because I played around with different ways of creating, because LangChain, if you look at over here, everything underneath here, LLMA index, this is the initial LLMA index that we just installed now, right? LangChain is used to sort of like create chat agents. It's sort of like helper. It has like a bundle of helper applications that help you to query OpenAI directly and use different agents and tools to create sort of like, faster ways of dealing with OpenAI, that help you build chatbot applications much quicker than if you had to do some of those things from scratch. And also then it creates a sort of a standardized way of like working with chatbots, right? But this is completely optional. I think for what I need to do today, let me just think about this. I actually might not even to use, I'm only going to use the index, and then I'm going to use the loader, and then we'll see if we need to use some of the agents over here. Otherwise, I'm going to completely cover this in a future tutorial. So stay tuned, and maybe I'll make this a series, and sort of we will just move on and advance our chatbot as we go on, and then add on the different functionalities of the different libraries. So for now, we're just going to do the LLMA index. We're just going to work only with that. And then so we've completely installed the LLMA index and the OpenAI. Now, once we've done that, we're going to need to import our OpenAI key. So for that, I'm going to say to create a file, and I'm going to call this Python. Okay, actually, first of all, let's paste our other config.py file in here. So for that, let's say nano config.py, and inside of the nano config.py file, we are going to paste our API key. And for that, I'm going to just hide it so you don't see it, but I am copying my API key right now, and I am pasting it inside of the file called config.py, and then I'm going to close it. And once I've closed it, then we know we have it done. So if you list, you'll see now I've got this file called config.py, and inside of there I've pasted my API key exactly the way that I showed you to do it. Then once we've done that, we're going to create a new file, and we're going to call it search web search. We're going to call it web search.py because we're using this to search specific websites. And inside this web search.py, the first thing we're going to do is install the LLMA index. Import the index and the downloader that we need from the LLMA library. And then we're going to import operating system because we need that to initialize our API key. We're going to actually just save the API key as an environment variable so that they can be accessed later on by the tools that we need. So don't worry about it. Just make sure that let's import config. This is not what we import OS, and then import config, like that. So once we've imported OS and imported config, then we can say the environment variable is make sure you call it exactly what it is called here, because the libraries use it later on inside of the environment as an environment variable, and inside of that file, remember, we called that variable key. So just make sure you import config, and then you say config.key in there, and then it will set the environment variable. So once we've done that, we are ready to then go and create our web readers and so forth. Okay, so before I do this, actually, I'm going to close this because I want to actually show you exactly what's happening. So I'm going to run these files completely. I'm going to run this file line by line because I want to exactly show you exactly what's going on in the background, because this is a learning channel. I'm really teaching you. So let's run a Python shell by just saying Python. Now we are inside of a Python shell. So inside of a Python shell, we're going to first of all import the libraries that we need from LLMA index. Once we've done that, we're going to then import our operating system, and we're going to import config, import our operating system, and import config. So we only need to copy that, import config. Once we've done that, we're going to set the environment variable. Then once we've set the environment variable, we're going to use the download loader, which is imported over here. We're going to use that to actually initiate the Beautiful Soup web reader. All right, so let's copy that and initiate the Beautiful Soup web reader. Once we've done that, we're going to then create our loader. Don't worry about what's going on. It's working well. We import our loader. Once we've done that, we're going to then create a document. Now, if you read the documentation, so this is a correction on the documentation. I must actually ask them to, or put in let them know that there's an error over here because the code has changed. If you go over here and you use the loader based on the documentation that's given on their website, they tell you to say load the data and then create the index. Where is it? No, at the top here. And then they say, load the GPTS simple vector index, and just, it takes in documents as a variable. If you do this, you're going to get an error because it doesn't take documents. It takes actually, if you wanted to take documents, you need to say from documents. They've changed the library. So I went through that. I got the error. So initially in the documentation, this is what they have in the documentation, but this is going to give you an error. So what you need to do is just to update it to say from documents, and then you do that, and this just probably needs to be updated. But anyway, we'll cover through that. So we set our loader, and once we've set the loader, we're going to now load the data. So this is the URL. You can enter any URL that you want. And remember, I said I'm going to ask about my own website. So this is the data that is available on my website, and I want to enter this data into the loader, right? So I'm going to specifically put in my own URL over there. So you can put in any URL that you like, by the way, to test the information. So loader is equals to Beautiful Soup web reader. Then once you've done that, we're going to create the documents, and keep in mind that documents takes in a list of URLs, right? This is an array. If you see like the square brackets like this, it means this is a list, which means you could enter multiple URLs. So let's say you have a documentation website, which we're going to try later on today, and you could enter multiple URLs inside of a list. So this is now just a list with one URL, by the way. But what this produces is a list of documents that we're going to be working with. So I'm going to just say documents is equals to that. The result of this, let me just put this up here so you can see what I'm enter that. Why can't I want to put this up here so you can see what I'm typing. So this documents produces a list of documents. So if I like copy and paste these documents just to display what's there, you can see this is a list array, and inside of this list array is what Beautiful Soup has done. It has just gone and taken all your website information and scrapped it in text format. You see, so even the fiery emojis, they are all there. So all the text from my website has been added over here into the documents. So that's actually what we want. So then we're going to be able to then create an index. Remember what I said to you, after you create the document, you then create an index using this vector index to create an index from the documents that you've just scrapped off the website. So that's what the next line of code does. So this library really simplifies this process. If you had to do this manually, it would and write your own code, it will be lines and lines of code that you have to write. But by using this library, it's basically 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of code that we're going to be working with to create our index. And now we've got our index. So our index is ready, and these are the tokens. You can see the tokens from the index, and you're ready to now start making inquiries using the index, right? So the way you do that is, now I've made inquiries, and I've created the index, and now I can use that index to get answers. I can query the index. So for example, let's query the index and say, I don't know, let's create a prompt that says what is Coco, right? This is the test question we're going to do. If you ask ChatGPT now, what is Coco? ChatGPT is going to tell you, I don't know what Coco is. But now I have entered the website information that defines this Coco thing in a lot of ways. This is a website that explains what Coco is. If I ask now this index, what is Coco, it should be able to tell me what Coco is, right? So I'm going to say, the prompt is what is Coco, and to get an answer, you basically just say response is equals to index query using the prompt. So I'm going to say R, right, is equals to index query prompt. Now, the thing I noticed when I did this is it does take quite a bit of time, and probably when you build a real life production application, this might be a bit of a challenge. So you're going to have to figure out how to deal with the amount of time it takes to get a response from this, right? Nonetheless, we've done that, and now let's print R. Okay, so let's say print our R, which is the response that we've just gotten there, and see what this is going to tell us. Right? Coco is a comprehensive business management software that allows users to manage most of their day-to-day businesses administration in one place. It's a one-stop shop for all your business admin. So if you had asked ChatGPT before what is Coco, ChatGPT wouldn't know what Coco is. But now we've taken a website, we have created a document from the website information using Beautiful Soup. Then we've taken that document and created an index that an AI model language model can understand. And now we're querying that index, and that index has got specific data that we want to know about. So now if you ask it now, what is Coco, it's going to be able to tell you exactly what Coco is, because it's now reading. It created, the language model created this response, right, from the information that is available on this website. So this, in short, is exactly how you can train your own personal language model to answer information based on data that you give it. And I've just done this example using a website reader. You can use a file document. So imagine you've got past question papers and you've got study notes. I can see the applications of this. Imagine you've got study notes and past question papers that have all the answers to everything you need to study in December for your end of year exams. You could use the file input. You could use the file input and you could put all of these things into a file directory. So you could put all of these things into a file directory, or you could use the document input. So remember, you can also create multiple indexes, right? You can create multiple indexes and add all of those indexes together, or append the indexes together to have more content. But what you can do once you've done that, you can create your files, or you can create your Word documents, or your EPUB, or your audio. You can use a JSON. You can use there's different formats. You can use a PDF, you can use a CSV, you can even use Google Drive. You can even put information inside of your Google Drive, and then you can query via the Google Drive, and then you can ask it questions around, what was the answer to this question, or this and that. And the applications for this are just amazing, right? But what I've shown you here is very, very straightforward, how to actually build a query. But I want to now take this a step further and say, okay, this is good because you've got this working inside of your command line. But in reality, many people can't actually use a command line application, right? A command application is for me as a developer, testing code and working on code and figuring out how things work. How do we take this command line application and what we've built here and build an actual working application? Because that's really what you want at the end of the day. And that's what this channel of ours is all about. I'm going to now take this a step further, and I'm going to say, well, this is cool on the command line, and you can see that I've just done this and it works just fine. However, I'm going to exit out of here. And I'm going to say, well, a command line application is really, really nice, but it doesn't really help me much, because I actually want a web application, a working web application to work with, right? So now I'm going to deactivate this virtual environment, right? I'm going to cd out of here. I'm going to clear this. I'm going to cd into ChatGPT. If you have been following along with our channel, this is the application we just built in our previous video. So in fact, I might even have this as a continuation of that tutorial series or something like that. But we built a ChatGPT application, and if you're not sure and you didn't follow along, just go and have a look. It's the very last video before this one. And you can go and have a look at that and see how we built this ChatGPT application. So I'm going to work off that existing ChatGPT application, and I'm going to move forward from there. And I'm going to say, all right, let's start by activating the environment over here. So let's activate this environment. And there it is. It's activated. You can see that's the environment of ChatGPT activated. And then I'm going to cd again into ChatGPT, because everything is inside of this folder. So I'm going to list over here. You can see this is everything we've worked with this. I think I even had the starter code for this inside of GitHub. So go have a look there, or follow the video and figure out exactly what we did. If we run this application, it's going to run on this port 888. I just want to show you or remind you exactly what we built the last time. So it's running on port 888, and this is exactly what it was. So this is just a ChatGPT app where you can just ask it questions and it will give you. So so it's working off the original ChatGPT engine. So I'm going to ask it, what is Skoko? Right? So the original ChatGPT, if you're asking it what Skoko is, it doesn't know. So from the information that ChatGPT was trained on up to 2021, there's no information about what Skoko is. It doesn't know. It actually asks you, can you please clarify? I'm not entirely sure what you're referring to as Skoko. I don't really know what the hell Skoko is. All right. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna edit this application. So that it works off the index and it's able to specifically read this Skoko website URL right now. And when I ask it what Skoko is, it's going to give me an answer. Isn't that cool? So let's have a look at this code. I've already written code for you here, and let's try and see how we can sort of build this into our existing application. And I'm going to try and do this as quickly as possible so that because we've already coded this, it shouldn't be too complicated. So let's list this. We can do everything inside of there's actually a way to create an index and then save it as an index.json file, and then the next time we just read off the JSON file. So that's probably better instead of creating an index every single time, unless if you think the document information would have changed, right? So let us actually build this. I think I've highlighted this lines of code out, but basically what this will do is that it will create this index, and then it will save this index to disk, and then it will now be reading off the index in future. So let's do that. Let's create this up to here, and then we'll now know how to work with the index going forward, so that we just import the index like that. So clear. Let us pip install our libraries first. We already have installed OpenAI over here, so all we need to install over here is the LLMA index. So pip install this one inside of our ChatGPT env. While that is working, we need to get our API key, which means we need to have our API key inside of the config, but I think we already have that inside of the config file that we had before. Let us wait for this to finish. Cool. So I'm going to say nano app.py. I'm going to open our app.py file. You'll see we already have the OpenAI API key inside of the I think it's inside of the AI API file. So let me close that. Let me list this again, and let's open this one. I just want to be able to access the API key inside of my index, or create or add it to the environment. So I'm going to say nano. Cool. So the Open API key is, this is the code for it. So let me just no. The API key is equals to that. So let's close that, and let me just paste it at the top here. So the API key is the config file .development config.that. Okay, so let me highlight it out, and then we just need to copy this into the app.py. So let's clear nano app.py. So at the top here, we just need to paste the API key over there. And once we've pasted the API key, we just need to set it into the environment variable. So we can copy that, but let's import OS first. Then once we've done that, we say os.environ API key is equals to, we can even just copy that and paste that in there. That means we don't need this line over here. Then this is where our API key is. This is just if you're working off this file before in the past. Then so now we have set up our Open API key. Let us then import the loaders that we need. Actually, we don't need to import these loaders for now. Let's actually close this. Yes. I want to create the index as a JSON file. So I want to run everything up to here. So let us do that. Let us first of all import this. Then once we've done that, we go and we import OS. we go and we import import config, and then we say the API key is equals to config development environment open API key. Let's test that. That works. And then we can then set the environment variable with the open API key is equals to that, is equals to the API key. Then once we've done that, we can then create our reader and our document, and then we'll save the document to disk. And then in future, we don't have to run all of this. We can just import the document from disk directly. So let's run the web reader. Let's create the web reader. All right, takes a bit of time to read that whole website. And then let's build our loader. All right, so our loader is built, and then let's create that document, load the data into the document object. So that's done. And then what we can do is now create the index. So we're going to create this index over there. And once we've created the index, we're going to save this index to disk, and we're going to call the file index.json. So let's do that. Index saved to disk, index.json. So that's saved to disk. And then in future, going forward, all we need is to now load from disk the index.json. So we don't have to load the website every single time. So now I can exit off of here. If I exit off of here and I clear and I list, you'll see now there's a new file called index.json. This is the file we just created now when we loaded the vector index. So if you now open this file, let's just open it and see, so I can show you. This is a JSON file. You can even download it. You can see what is in the index structure. So it's basically, now we don't have to load that website every time. We can just complete, because it takes time as well every time. You saw how long it took just to read the website, how long it took to create the document and so forth. So now we're going to simplify our process a little bit. In future, we will not need to load that again. Now, inside of our Python app.py, all we need to do is to call that. So let us now open nano app.py. Inside of nano app.py, we still need our API key. But what we are importing now, actually, we don't need to import the reader anymore. We only need to import the simple vector index so that we can load this file over here using that simple vector index. That's all we need. The OS environment, we need to set that as to the open API key. And yeah, so that's that. So let's create the index. So once we've done that and we've set that, let me just put in the hash here to sort of create a comment. We need to create the index for Coco.io website. And there it is. We're using this library, which we just loaded over there, and we load from disk and we load this index.json file, which exists, and we just saw it right now when we were looking for that file. All right. So once we've done that, now we can query the index immediately and print a response. So now inside of our file, remember how we used to do this? We used to get a response. We used to, like, inside of the root, we used to get a form, and inside of the form, we used to get the prompt from the information that's entered. Prompt is request.form prompt, and then we would put in the response, and then the response.answer would be based on this function, where this function used to get the sort of the response from the OpenAI directly. So now, instead of doing that, what we're going to do is, instead of getting the response from the generate chat response function, which we used to use before, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new function. We're going to say a response answer So basically we need to keep the same structure. And instead of getting the response from there, we're going to say it is index query prompt. So basically this index query prompt, which is exactly the same thing we did over there, R is equals to, actually let's do this. Let's have its own function. R is equals to index. This index, oh no, we can't call this index now because there's an index there. This is going to be a problem. So let's call this something else. We cannot call this index. Let's call this IND. Let's just call it IND. Right, because we already have an app root that's called index will have an error if we use the same name. So let's say IND R is equals to IND, which is actually the index, query the prompt, and the prompt is the prompt that comes in over there. So we query the prompt, and IND is index query prompt, and then after we've done that, we actually need to get r.response. That's what we need to send to the front. So so this needs to be r.response, because the response object that comes in has got many other things. You'll see I didn't show you in the when I was printing on the when I was testing this function before, or when I was doing this on the command line, I didn't show you, but you can check this yourself. You can run this function IND is equals to query prompt and enter the prompt and see and print out this R object. So print it out or just display it inside of your command line and see what actually is returned, because a lot of things are returned, and what you actually want is the r.response part of what's returned. That is what actually you want to send. This is a text. This is a text that you then want to display to the front end or whatever there is. But you can run this function yourself inside of the command line and see what actually gets returned. I'll probably do it with you now, and then we'll test this out. So this should work. We have, let's just go through the code again. We first of all initiating our environment, open API key. Then we are getting the IND, which is the index, using the simple vector index, load from disk the file that's called index.json. So then we go into this IND file, is the one that we use to query whatever the prompt that's given to us. And now we should be able to get an answer based on information that's available from the website, as opposed to what ChatGPT used to know before. So query the prompt, and the answer is equals to that. So let's save this, right? And then let's run Python app.py. Cool. No errors. Let us open this website. I think it's already open here, so let's refresh it. Cool. So let us ask, what is Coco? Remember what it told us the last time when we said what is Coco? So let us ask what is Coco this time. What is Coco? So now this is a bit slower. You saw the response time is a bit slower working with your own documentation, but there you go. Coco is a comprehensive business management software that provides users with a bundle of tools to help manage their day-to-day Google Calendar and so forth and so forth. So this was not available before. Remember when you asked ChatGPT the first time what Coco was, it couldn't tell me what Coco was. It didn't know. It asked for more information. So now we have entered. Now we are working with OpenAI, but with a very specific document that has that information, and now we are able to get the answer that we're looking for. And I think going forward, this is going to be one of the main applications of ChatGPT in my mind, because website information is, openly available, trillions of data that OpenAI has already been trained on. That's good to have a chatbot that you can ask just about anything. But imagine now you're able to build your own chatbot with your own documentation on your website. So for example, let's say, inside of our Coco website, we have our own documentation. If you click on navigation and you click on documentation, this is our own Skoko online documentation. And every time we get questions from people in our chatbot, specifically on our website, most of the things they ask is available in the documentation. People asking things like, oh, how do I sign in with Google? Oh, what is your price? What are your pricing? What are things like that? And this information is openly available inside of our documentation. And you have to hire actual individuals to sit and go through this. And when people are asking questions, we have to go and find the answer. But now we are able to now build a chatbot where we can feed this documentation information into the chatbot, and you can now still make it build it like a chatbot on the website. When people are asking, you see our chatbot, we've got our our chat with us there, and you could argument this, for example, with your OpenAI trained chatbot with our documentation from the website. And now when somebody is asking you something very, very specifically, how much do you charge for this and this feature inside of Skoko, it can go and query the documentation and actually give you an answer. You understand? So the use cases are endless, and I hope you will find and build something really, really interesting with this technology. And thank you guys for watching. Next week we're going to think about how to expand this, but I'm really particularly interested, and maybe I'll do some research on this, but I'm particularly interested in how to speed this thing up a little bit, because it takes quite a bit of time to come up with an answer. So let's ask another question. Like, let's look at the website and let's go back home. Let's ask something very, very specific, right? Can you schedule social media posts with Skoko? Can you schedule social media posts with Skoko? Let's find out. I mean, if you ask this to the ChatGPT website, oh no, you cannot schedule social media posts with Skoko. Skoko offers a range of business applications that is accounting, and employee timesheet management, but does not offer social media scheduling tool. No, man, this is wrong. You can actually schedule, approve, and publish social media posts with ease. So it's missing some of the information. So let's ask something else. What can you integrate Skoko to? So you might have to fine tune the model a little bit, because you can then, tell it that actually this was wrong. The correct answer is actually you can. So maybe let's see what it will say when I tell it that. Actually you can, because on the website it says, yeah. Let me copy this and say and try and correct it and see what it says. Actually you can. You can. So let's see what it says if I correct it and say, actually, you can. Okay, start free trial. So there's a bit of work that needs to be done here, but at the very least, you can see how you can work around the documentation and training the thing on your own specific document. So I'm very interested to see what you're going to build. I'm also very interested to see what else you can add in here. For example, like the other things that are available, Google Docs, try and work with that. Try and work with an actual Word document where you can put in information about yourself. So imagine you can enter your CV as a Word document in here about your information in your previous work experience, and then you can build a chatbot that can answer specific questions about you as a person. So think about all of this. The use cases are just amazing once you're able to input your own information into a ChatGPT training engine and build a model, a thing that can answer specific questions around what you need. So with that, guys, I'm going to call it quits, and this is the end of this video. So remember to subscribe, and let's come back again next week and figure out how to better work with these models going forward, maybe specifically how to retrain and make sure that it really gets the questions right, because I can see that's already a loophole over there, and what else you can do with this. And with that, guys, see you again next time.